Welcome back. Now we see how to add and subtract fractions. Notice multiplication of fractions is easy because we simply multiply straight across, numerator to numerator, denominator to denominator. But to add or subtract fractions, they must have a common denominator. Addition or subtraction requires common denominator. As long as a fraction and another fraction, two fractions have the same denominator, you can add the tops together, subtract the new tops together. So addition of fraction and subtraction of fraction requires common denominator. For this purpose, we look for least common denominator of two fractions. Note, any common denominator is good, but we like to choose the least common denominator whenever easy. For example, let's look at this example, 7/12 plus 5/18. So least common denominator, how do we find the least common denominator of these two denominators? Well, here is a straightforward approach. There are many approaches. This is just one of those approaches. Start with the larger of the two denominators, 18. Now, does 12 divide 18 evenly? No, it does not. So 18 is going to be scratched away. Let's look for the next multiple of 18. What do I mean? This is 18. 18 times 1 is 18. So now try 18 times 2. What is 18 times 2? 36. Now check, does 12 divide 36 evenly? Yes, it does. 12 times 3 is 36. Does 18 divide 36 evenly? Yes, we just saw 18 times 2 is 36. So 36 is the first place where both the denominators divide evenly. To repeat, you start with the bigger of the two denominators. Check whether all the denominators divide in it evenly. If it doesn't, then take the bigger of the two denominators times 2. Then check whether if this one also were to fail, then you would try 18 times 3, 18 times 4, and so on. The very first place where all the denominators divide evenly is the least common denominator. So you erase the previous one. This is the least common denominator. Alright, so what do we do with the least common denominator? So let's say I want to add these two fractions. 12 goes in 36 3 times. Whatever I multiply to the denominator, I multiply to the numerator. 18 divides in 36 2 times. Whatever I multiply downstairs, I multiply upstairs. So this is nothing but fraction. 7 times 3 is 21. 12 times 3 is 36. Plus fraction. 5 times 2 is 10. 18 times 2 is 36. So there we have it, common denominator. Once you have common denominator, you simply take the numerators and add or subtract as the question tells you to do. This is addition. So we are adding and denominator is 36, common denominator. So this is equal fraction 31 over 36. Notice there is no common factor. So this is the reduced form and we are done. Alright. So this is how we add fractions. Alright. 31 over 36. Let's try another example. So this was first example. Let's try second example. You have fraction 7 over 12 plus fraction 11 over 15. Now, you want to look for least common denominator. So, what do? Notice, start with the larger of the two. Does 12 divide 15 evenly? It does not. 15 is 15 times 1. So let's try 15 times 2, 30. Does 12 divide 30 evenly? No, it does not. So 15 times 1, 15 times 2, 15 times 3, 45. Does 12 divide 45 evenly? No, it does not. 15 times 1, 15 times 2, 15 times 3, 15 times 4, 60. Does 12 divide 60 evenly? Yes, it does. 12 times 5 is 60. What about 15? Of course it does, because we just saw 15 times 1, 15 times 2, 15 times 3, 15 times 4. So both 12 and 15 divide 60 evenly, and that's the first place they do. So you scratch off the previous numbers. 60 is your least common denominator. What do we do with the 60? Well, we are going to rewrite our fractions with 60 as a denominator. How? 12 goes in 60 5 times. 12 times 5. Whatever I multiply downstairs, I multiply upstairs. 15. 15 goes in 64 times. Whatever I multiply downstairs, I multiply upstairs. This gives me the fraction. 7 times 5 is 35. 35. Denominator is 60 plus 11 times 4 is 44. 15 times 4 is 60. There you have it. You got the common denominator you were working at. So this gives you the fraction 35 plus 44. And denominator is common denominator, therefore 60. This is equals the fraction 35 plus 44 is 79 over 60. Notice 60 and 79 do not have any common factors. We stop here. This is not a proper fraction. If you notice, the numerator is larger than the denominator. If you notice, 60 goes in 79 once and 19 is left over. That's mixed number of this fraction. Okay, let's try one more example. 13 over 15 plus 17 over 20. So you have fraction 13 over 15 plus fraction 17 over 20. What do? We don't have common denominator. So start with the bigger of the two. Does 15 divide 20 evenly? No, it does not. So this is 20 times 1. 20 times 2 is 40. Does 15 divide 40 evenly? No, it does not. 20 times 1, 20 times 2, 20 times 3 is 60. Does 15 divide 60 evenly? Yes. 20 divides 60 evenly? Yes. So, and that's the first place. You see, the previous numbers did not work for 15. So 60 is the common denominator. So how do we get 60? 15 times 4. Whatever I multiply downstairs, I multiply upstairs. 20 times 3. Whatever I multiply downstairs, I have to multiply upstairs. So that is equal to 13 times 4, that's 42. 15 times 4 is a 60 plus 17 times 3 is a 51. 20 times 3 is a 60. So we have common denominators now. So 42 plus 51, we can add it straight away, and that gives us the fraction 93 over 60. Notice there are 93 has 3 as a common factor, 31 here, and 60 has 3 as a factor, 20. So 3 reduces 3, you have 31 over 20, which is not a proper fraction. How many 20s go in 31? 1. What's left over? 11 out of 20. That's a mixed number for this improper fraction. Alright, so this is how we add fractions. Next, we will see how to subtract fractions. The procedure is essentially the same, but instead of adding, we subtract. We'll continue in our next video. Until then,